The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's Monday. Another week in paradise.
Is it paradise?
Well, paradise lost.
It's something, that's for sure. You know, I'm this weekend, the weekend flush was a little morbid at the beginning, and I think that I had to address it, and I think I still have to address it. You know, the holiday season for a lot of people is very depressing, and it makes it very difficult for people to sometimes get past them. And we see a lot more suicide attempts and, you know, people who just aren't functioning well and they're alone, depressed. And, you know, and I said pretty much in the thing, you know, share your pain. And I know that kind of sounds negative, but, you know, if they talk with a priest or a minister or a monk or a best friend, whatever it may be, just to kind of get it out there. You know, this weekend we've had numerous deaths. And Carlos, you know, one of our lovely little friends here from the Flint, he said earlier last week that, you know, 2016 has been like one of the worst years for Fall River in regards to people dying. And it's been, I think, the worst year in deaths ever. And we've seen so many of them just in the past few weeks from John Glenn and on and on and on. And you know, we had two people who suffered a major accident and died on 24 this weekend. We have a 20-year-old young man who was a boxer here in Fall River who passed away. And, you know, my heart goes out to these families. And it's just, it's terrible. Death is never expected, you know, the way they happen recently. But I mean, some people, you know, they have terminal cancer, that type of stuff. Even though they have it, they don't expect it. And it's tough to deal with. And the holidays just makes it that much more difficult.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, the fact is, death is the end of everybody's journey on this planet. Nobody can, you know, as much as we've had the picture. If you got the picture of Dorian Gray, you're still not gonna avoid it. The fact is that, you know, it's a reality, and you know, the passing of John Glenn was a great loss to this country. He contributed a tremendous amount. He was a true American, and you know, and I'm sure he never took a knee during the national anthem. But the fact is, you know, John Glenn was in his 90s.
Right.
And, you know, while his passing is tragic, you know, what's more tragic is when people die in their 20s and they die from suicides. And, you know, there are some people who enjoy solitude, and some people have learned to deal with it, and other people need you know, they need interaction, and they need basically a safety net of people to deal with. And by, you know, if you're feeling depressed, some of us actually like the solitude of you know, you don't want to listen to this silly season. But the fact is that you know, there are, you know, you have the Samaritans, you have a whole bunch of things, and you have people, as you said, reach out. If you have to go to a rabbi or a priest or a minister or anything, or you know, the fact is that, or just go and talk to somebody. There are people who, you know, are around, and reach out to somebody, you know, and this is a very difficult season for some people, and it's kind of a it's kind of a binary neutral season for politics because you know, all the politicians are out there having Christmas parties and stuff, and you don't have a lot going on. We have a little bit, but you know, this is a season that a lot of people have a difficult time, a very, very difficult time with. So if you are, you know, reach out to someone.
It's important. And, you know, the number of deaths by young people this year was, you know, very high. Some of it related to car accidents, some of it related to drugs, and a lot of it was senseless. It's senseless.
Yeah, and I see, you know, I mean, it's my, you know, everybody has their own opinion, but, you know, I know that I've said many, many times before that, you know, they are enabling a lot of these. To me, they're actually contributing to a lot of this by really, really enabling this stuff. And the fact is that, you know, there's no excuse for drinking and driving. There's no excuse, you know, for, you know, the drugs. And now we're going to allow people to go to rehab forever, in and out, and have a revolving door. And we're more worried about the social impact than we are about the toll in human life. And many, many times, they take someone with them in a drunken driving accident or driving impaired. And, you know, the fact is that I'm all for giving somebody a chance, but not 15 chances and 20 chances and continuing to make excuses. You know, this is not acceptable behavior. You know, and we should come to the realization that we have to stop looking at, you know, we make everything into a disease.
Right.
You know, there was no such thing as attention deficit disorder when this country was being settled, because the kids in that era had too much work to do. They got up, went out in the fields, and they went out and did whatever they had to do, and you know, or they got chained to a machine somewhere, and they worked 14 hours, and they came home.
Yep.
And they passed out.
Right.
And if they didn't, they'd get hit in the head with a shovel. You know, and you know, spare the rod and spoil the child has long is passé for most people. And also the fact of positive and negative reinforcement. We don't have that anymore. If your child does something well, he should be rewarded. If he does something that's not, he should be punished. I'm not saying you take him out and tie him to the mast and whip him, but there has to be consequences. You know, you take something away. You take their games away, or you actually make them go outside and play. But, you know, the society itself, you look around and you see the degeneration of the fact that there are, you know, there used to be rules. And to get back to Tom Brokaw on December 7th, when he said, you know, some of the people he interviewed that went to the Second World War, the first new pair of pants they ever got, and they came up through the Depression. They were used to not getting every single thing that they wanted, and looking at anything that interfered with their own agenda as a reason to have a tantrum and say, "Oh me, oh my." And the result of that is what we see in this country today. You know, we got football players that are making millions and millions of dollars taking knees during the national anthem. And I don't care if you're opposed, you can be as vocal as you want, but the national anthem and the flag is a symbol of this nation. And everybody who put a uniform on and died for this country, you're insulting them. And when he takes a knee, when Kaepernick takes a knee, he better remember there are war veterans without knees that gave him the right to be the idiot that he is. So, yeah, don't get me going on that one. So let's get to the news now. We've been morbid enough. Let's
yeah.
Stop, you know. So
well, you know what's interesting is you know, the local press, the local print media started looking at the legal bills for the city, because as you remember, and as Joe Good very clearly wrote, Jazel criticized the Sutter administration for all the legal bills. And they only budgeted $150,000 for legal expenses, of which they're saying a little more than a third is going towards labor-related issues. Oh, are those the issues that they never win? I'm just,
Yeah. And you know, as again, we have situations where they don't have anybody that has a clue about labor, the responsibilities under labor law to follow a process and a procedure, and they violate this, and then they wonder why. And you know, I'm looking at it. He spent more than Sutter, the man he criticized, already, but we haven't even begun to see the billing because they're still going back. The labor relations, that labor relations suit is ongoing. There are going to be other suits filed, and the fact is, look, Sutter, you know, we had a law department that's incapable of. We got a part-time law department, a supposedly part-time law department, and that spends 140 hours figuring out what to write you as a response. But I don't know how you're putting in 20 hours a week, because 20 divided by 140 is a lot of weeks.
That's right.
That's more, that's more weeks than there are in a year. He did almost an entire year's worth of work there, So
Yeah, but it's interesting because when you look at some of these agreements that they have, for instance, Clifford and Kenny, who's representing the city in the Teamsters issue, because they were contracted, they were already paid $25,000. Well, excuse me, let me change that. The terms of their agreement are an hourly fee of $160 an hour, which is low, a monthly $450 payment for unlimited telephone and email access, not to exceed $25,000 in a fiscal year, unless approved by the mayor. We know that's going to hit $25,000. Now, according to the invoices that the Herald News obtained from Clifford and Kenny, between January and November, the firm has billed the city $98,000. So $98,059. In fiscal year 2017, that began on July 1, the city has paid out $47,000 out of a $150,000 legal budget. Leaves you a little less than $103,000 there, Attorney Macy.
Yeah. Well, look, let's face it. She says it's a fairly low $160 an hour, but
right.
Let's face it. They're doing labor law, and the fact is that paralegals are doing a lot of the work, and it's like selling cars. You can charge a little less, but if you know you're going to have a ton of billable hours. And I brought this point up, and this is what really bothers me about the city of Fall River. It's like, they're like the child who put his hand on the stove and burnt it, then put both hands on until he burnt his hands off.
Right.
Now he's putting his forearms on the stove. We did this dance with an attorney called Albert Mason. He came into the city under the guise of reducing
sanitation costs,
workman's comp claims, and getting people off workman's comp. And he had an abysmal record throughout the state. He had been censured by the bar of board overseers 2 or 3 times, and he was racking up hundreds of thousands of dollars, because what he'd do was, even though they knew they couldn't win, they would constantly appeal and file a brief when there was no brief necessary to run up the hours, and he was running up the hours. I never settled a grievance at the city level with Albert Mason as a city attorney, and I never lost one against him. But every single one of those grievances went to arbitration, and when we got finished with presenting the arbitration, you have an option of letting the arbitrator make a decision or filing briefs. And even though there wasn't a brief necessary in many of these cases, because they're pretty straightforward, okay, this is what the contract says, this is what they did, but Albert Mason would always say, I want to file a brief, because he was getting more billable hours. And then when he filed his brief and we won, he'd appeal to court, even though he knew it was impossible for him to win in court, because the only way you can take an arbitrator's decision to court is if there was fraud, perjury, or something that affected the decision. You can't take it to court to get a second bite of the apple because you didn't like the decision. Because every contract says the award of an arbitrator is binding on both parties. But he racked up the bills, and this is what Clifford and Kenny does. And I had a meeting to explain some labor stuff with Counselor Ray Mitchell, who asked me to go there and explain some stuff to the city. And I made this very clear. And some of these people were involved. Kathy Anverse was a city councilor when we had Albert Mason. These types of firms, there's no impetus for them to settle. They settle, they make less money. So they're going to fight and appeal and fight and appeal and fight and appeal and run up $98,000 worth of bills. And I can guarantee you that most of the stuff done on this were done by paralegals. And because, you know, this is what happens. You know, it's just like when we talked about, I'm going to segue in, what we talked about on a last show. We talked about them stealing an idea. And we had a very, very, very nice post-program conversation with someone who came down and said that someone called and said that we had malice toward the mayor by saying he stole that idea. Well, he did. Well, if he didn't know it was his, well, he knows now. And I'm not going to go through the entire conversation, but there's no malice. Then he said, well, what, would you ever give him credit? I said, yeah. If he would have, just like what I tell him, do the right thing in labor and you won't have these problems. And CJ, you were standing there. We had a conversation. I told the individual, I said, yeah. I said, as soon as they found out that this company had basically taken something almost even to the logo.
Right.
And charged them $100,000. Had the mayor stood up and said, we're not going to pay you because you didn't do anything. All you did was go and look at somebody else's ad campaign and marketing campaign and give it to us. So, I mean, we could have got someone that wasn't a quote-unquote advertising company to go and look and steal somebody else's campaign. We can go online and Google some marketing campaigns in every city and town in the United States and do that. Had the mayor said to that company, rather than looking for more money for them, said, we're not going to pay you, and we're not going to use this campaign because it's trademarked. Let's get something original in the city of Fall River. Governor Raimondo did that because of the political pressure, and the people rose up with warmer and cooler, and they didn't even steal that. That was so pathetic, nobody ever used it. But the fact is...
It became the Dumber and Dumber campaign.
But the fact is, Raimondo dumped it.
Right.
So you want me to give you credit, do the right thing. Don't reward incompetence.
I agree.
So that conversation was brought about by a telephone call. So when you're out there watching us, hi guys, you know.
Well, you know, getting back to this law issue, because we brought this up during the inaugural portion of the year when the mayor first took office, and the company known as Darrow and Everett got $20,000 to do nothing. That's kind of like the $24,000 the mayor gave to a marketing firm to sell market our properties. Again, did nothing. Councilor Ponte brought that up. So now we've got $44,000 out of the city budget. Somebody else's money. Oh, it's my money. It's my money, right? It's your money, right, Chip?
That's right.
Okay, $44,000 to do nothing. Where can I get that job? I think we should make the C&C marketing company, and we're going to take their money and do nothing. So $20,000. And how did they get that $20,000? Now, I'm not saying this happened, but I want you to think for a second. Darrow and Everett gave Jazel Correia, his inaugural campaign, $7,500. That inaugural campaign created $36,000 to pay for your free day of gala. Okay? $7,500. And in return, one could assume, one could presume, one could infer, I'm not saying this actually happened, but when you give $7,500 and then you get $20,000 to do nothing, do you think there might be a little bit of payback there?
It sounds like pay to play to me. I mean,
I'm not. I want to make this very clear to our viewers. This is the way I am interpreting this, because when I see money like $7,500 going out for you to have a party, because that's what that money was for, a party, and shortly after that you get $20,000 and you do nothing. And then the city corporate council's defending it, saying, well, we expected it to be something. But I'm not saying anything else on these issues.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like there's a total disregard for the taxpayer, pay to play, and we all know that. We've seen some of these people with just like the computers that we talked about, that we paid a ton of money for computers that were already obsolete when we bought them. And like we bought the party van, it wasn't supposed to be used for anything except out-of-town trips. And now we see it parked everywhere, in front of buildings, in front of neighborhood association meetings, and it was, and to quote Kathy Ann Viveris, right, paraphrase, because it won't be exact. I want to be absolutely accurate. She said this was going to be used for out-of-town trips,
right,
and used for groups
to reduce the wear and tear on city employees, more particularly the administration's personal vehicles, which I don't think he has anymore. But that's another story, and again, my opinion. As many of you are well aware and are already ready to smoke them up while you got them, on Thursday, the legalization of recreational marijuana goes into effect, providing on Wednesday they have ratified the counts and certify them, and the Governor's Council accepts them. So, I know your hopes are up high, but there's still a notch that can be thrown into this. So let's talk about this. What is legal? Okay? Outside of your home, adults over 21 can possess up to 1 ounce of marijuana. Inside the home, adults 21 may possess up to 10 ounces of marijuana. A single individual may cultivate up to 6 marijuana plants for personal use and up to 12 plants per household. So if there's 5 adults in that house, you can't make 30. You can only do 12.
Son of a gun.
Are allowed if more than 1 adult lives on the premises. So if you've got 2 adults, you're still limited to 12. Okay, what isn't legal? Recreational marijuana cannot be sold in any form in Massachusetts without a retail license. A Cannabis Control Commission yet to be named will be responsible for issuing the retail licenses. Marijuana cannot be possessed, purchased, grown, or used by anyone under 21 unless they have a valid medical marijuana permit. And it's against the law to give away pot to someone under 21. Using pot is illegal in any public place. You can't, for example, walk down the street smoking a joint the way you would a cigarette. It's also illegal to use pot in any place where tobacco is banned. Possession of any amount of marijuana remains illegal on school grounds. Laws against operating cars and other vehicles under the influence of marijuana are unchanged. Open containers or partially consumed packages of marijuana cannot be kept in a motor vehicle except in the trunk or a locked glove compartment. Pot growing at home must be done discreetly and securely. Marijuana plants cannot be plainly visible from the street or any public area and must be cultivated someplace where there is a security device. Tenants cannot grow pot in their residence or smoke it if their landlord has a rule against it. Rental agreements, however, cannot prohibit tenants from consuming marijuana by means other than smoking. So landlords, you have the right to send to your tenants a change right now telling them that effective Thursday you cannot smoke marijuana on your property. Since marijuana is still banned under federal law, it can't be brought across state lines, sent by U.S. mail, or used on federal property. So all you people, this is a lot of people too, in federal housing projects, you're shafted. You smoke on federal property, you get kicked out. And there is actually a clause in your lease which allows them to evict you for possession or use or growing marijuana. So remember this come Thursday, because you people in Cardinal Maderos Heights or over at Sunset Hill or the Amityville Horror, you could be out of a place to live come Thursday, because Dave Sullivan already said it very clearly. He's going to start enforcing the no smoking policy on all housing authority properties. So January 1st, you can't smoke anywhere. It's going to be interesting.
How long has he been the housing director? So what he basically said by that is, just now because of marijuana, he's now going to enforce a law that he should have been enforcing since he became the housing director.
Yeah, it looks that way.
Yeah, that's basically what he's saying.
And
by the way, for the last 3 or 4 years, 5 years or whatever the hell it's been, that I've been the housing, I've been the director of the housing authority, I haven't enforced the no smoking. So guess what? If somebody died in a fire, now you're on record, because if somebody got smoke inhalation, you're liable, because you're not, you are the director, and you are legally obligated to enforce the laws,
Here you go
especially
again.
in
Here you go
a
again.
federal housing unit.
Here you go again, talking the law. And in the last 2 minutes or so of the show, looks like Swansea might be getting a place at the old auction place on Route 6. The old, what's that, Camara's auction?
No relation.
I had to say the name.
Yeah.
And it looks like there's already a little bit of opposition starting to build up. And, Will Flanagan, of course, is representing them, which is wonderful. I mean, Will's making a fortune on... I think the best thing that ever happened to him was getting recalled.
That's right. I expect a thank you card for Christmas.
I expect a cut of this at this point.
That's right. We should get a cut. A little bit of kickback here. We made him a millionaire. He's representing everybody.
I know.
He did. His law practice went from being an assistant DA making peanuts to the mayor, and now he's making like he's the F. Lee Bailey of cannabis.
Yeah, the ganja king. But it's interesting that they're choosing this. And again, but I think one of the big things that people have to realize is, because it says it in the article in the Pravda, is that these companies, all of them, are Chapter 180 companies. They're nonprofit. They do not pay taxes. They don't pay property taxes. They don't pay anything. Production taxes, nothing.
But
you pay the taxes.
They do make money, though.
And they're making millions of dollars. So in Swansea, they're agreeing to enter into a pilot situation, payment in lieu of taxes, which is going to give them a substantial sum of money. Fall River City Council, listen. Because they've got
like making nonprofits pay a little bit for all the services that they use?
But Fall River's got 4 or 5 potential marijuana facilities. And we've got one up in the industrial park, actually in the biopark, and they're not paying taxes. It's time to start implementing a pilot program. Grow a set already. Make these people pay for what they're getting. You don't want to charge them taxes? Fine. Find a fee, 20% of what they pay in taxes, or charge them every single dime for every single services, top dollar. It's the only way you can do it. Because it's the only way you're going to do it.
You can't do that, because who's on the board of directors of all these high-powered Charlton with their high six-figure salaries and live out of town? So you're not going to do that. So remember, now you can smoke pot, stay angry, and you can be happy. You can get high for Christmas now.
Yeah, that's a perfect Christmas gift. And my friend Tommy, I know you're watching. His birthday is on Thursday, so it's going to be funny to see. Hey, have a great day, and we'll see you Wednesday.